So I didn't want to travel either. And on my first day at Index, which was October 5th, 1983, I think Sarah's first day as well, somebody else, I forget the other person. Anyway, I got assigned, to my delight, this project on managing personal computing, working with Walter and Mike Hammer and Chuck Gibson under Jim Champy's overall auspices, I think, on the Index sign. And it was great. I really loved it. We came up with, I think, some really interesting ideas, and it didn't involve travel, so it was really wonderful. So after that ended, Walter, I think, decided that the mainstream of Index was really the way to go, and he went off to do more education-oriented stuff, and I said, I don't want to travel. I would like to keep this going. So I talked to Mike about it, and he said he thought it was a pretty good deal too, and so we started this thing called Prism, and it was really great for me. I was a very recent academic, and I didn't know much about how things worked in terms of these syndicated projects, but I don't know exactly how many times I got to observe Mike, but it was a lot, and so what I have here is 9 things I learned from Mike Hammer along the way. Mike could talk for 4 hours, but he usually had PowerPoint behind him, so. Number 1, always be a little offbeat to get attention, hence the 9, not the 10. Mike always had an interesting list of things. The conceit, as Mike called it, or the sort of clever theme, is just as important, if not more so, than the content itself. And this laundry list that I have, Mike would probably sneer at. It's a relatively weak conceit. I started with one that maybe some of you might recall. It was going to talk about Mike in terms of 8 different attributes, and then the first letters of each of the 8 spelled holy something. I can't remember. But my wife said that would be tacky, so I abandoned that plan. Number 3 was to, it's my first job in business, and I thought business would actually be business-like, but I was reassured to find out from Mike that it wasn't. Principle number 3 was always discuss politics, current events, and gossip first. Then, if there's any time, you get to the business matter at hand. So I found that quite refreshing. Number 4 was, I always thought, you had a deadline and you actually met the deadline. It turns out, I learned from Mike, deadlines are flexible up until the very last minute. Number 5 was be loyal to your tribe, and Mike was incredibly loyal certainly to his family, and those of us who got the chance to work with him got to kind of join the tribe at least for a while, and I can remember, he was very generous, very loyal, got me really nice, we both liked pens a lot, he got me really nice pens for the holidays. It was very nice being part of his tribe. Number 6, Steve hinted at this one too, tie your own thinking to that of other cultural icons. Certainly the Talmud, Zeno, I learned about Zeno's paradox from Mike, not my philosophy professor. Dorothy Parker, Groucho Marx, John Lennon, all those cultural icons. Number 7 was, again, I was an academic and I kept wanting to talk about the research, and I always wanted to talk about the conditions under which these ideas would really be effective, and he said, don't equivocate. Just say what you want. Nobody's interested in the details. Nobody's interested in whether the data really support it or not. Just be interesting and provocative, and that's all that matters. Number 8, audiences don't mind being insulted if it's done with cleverness and good humor. Number 9 was stick to your topical knitting. I never did this quite as well as Mike taught, but when I met him, Walter I'm sure recalls this, his primary hot button, if you will, was that we shouldn't really use the same old tired processes with the new office automation of the time. And throughout, of course, he kept being interested in that same issue of how to change the way business really works in terms of processes and operational innovations. And number 10, always be a little more generous than people expect. That's why I have 10, not 9, as I promised. I remember when Mike was planning the first Hammer Forum, I was somewhat tangentially involved, and we were talking about who the speakers were and so on, and then it got around to how we were going to market this thing. And Mike said, I have an idea. I'm going to give away 2 Legal Seafoods lobster dinners to anybody who signs up early. And I said, well, it sounds like a little bit, expensive as a gift. And he said, you always want to impress people with the generosity of what they get if they sign up early. So he was always very generous with his time, his intellect, and I, over the years, learned a lot more than those 9 or 10 things, and we'll certainly miss his presence. Who's next?